Welcome to episode number 15. On today's show, learn nonverbal clues and their impact on the sale, understand how to harvest customer data, and take away a schedule proven to increase productivity.
When you were little, what did you want to be when you grew up?
A car salesman.
Said no one ever.
Hi, I'm Patrick Hennessy.
And I'm Courtney Hennessy.
Welcome to the Be Less Typical in Car Sales podcast, a real-life account of the car business that breaks the perception of what it's like to be a car sales professional. During the show, we're going to take you into the lives and minds of those who have found success. So, ignite your passion and get ready to learn effective hacks to streamline your success and boost your income.
So, is that your pitch? It's pretty good. I want to be friends with that guy. That's how you feel after a conversation with Victor Montoya. As Patrick and I hung up the Skype call after interviewing Victor for today's episode, Patrick looked across the desk at me, leaned back in his chair, and said just that. I want to be friends with that guy.
I did, and you will too, because Victor is less typical. From his scheduled game plan to his sales philosophy, he has built his business based on.
You're spending energy trying to give somebody something that they value rather than getting something out of them.
When Victor was a little boy, he didn't want to be a car salesman. He loved the water and the ocean, not something easily accessible in Utah, where he grew up. So he wanted to be...
And I really wanted to kind of be a marine biologist, which is interesting.
It is interesting, but maybe that's why today Victor lives in Florida, right by the ocean. I think he's meant to live there. At first glance, he looks like a surfer dude.
But before moving to Florida, Victor was a personal trainer, a profession he liked because it was a business based on people. However, he got burnt out after a while and needed to make a change. So he asked one of his mentors what he should do. He reached out and explained.
Needed a change, and he said, hey, you're a great people person. You should come over and sell cars. And I really hadn't thought about it before, and thought I was a pretty good salesman as far as what I could do in the personal training realm and talk people into committing their lives to changing their bodies and the commitment that it takes. So I really took it as a challenge and moved over to a dealership close to my home, and it was a Toyota dealership.
The Toyota dealership where his mentor worked. So you would think that working with your mentor would make things easy, right? Not exactly.
And that's just where I started. I had no idea what the car business was about. I walked in the door as a green pea, and there was no onboarding process. It was, hey, go out there, get that guy, bring him in, and we'll show you how this thing is done.
Starting a new job is never easy. The transition is tough. It's overwhelming in the beginning.
The first year was a struggle. It was a lot of hours, a lot of discipline, a lot of learning, and I really grew to love it over the years.
This business, even with all of its faults, is a place you can grow to love, and a place that's hard to leave.
Yeah, it tends to do that. It's very hard to get out once you're in.
Yeah,
I've tried a few times, and I ended up right back where I started, and for good reason, right? I realized that I love the people in the car dealership, and it's the interactions with the customers. You just don't get that elsewhere,
Yeah, you don't. It's a lifelong. It's a long relationship. I mean, you might spend in a department store a few minutes with somebody. Here you spend hours, and over those hours you cover a lot of stuff, not only vehicle stuff, but a personal relationship, and that definitely has made the difference.
You develop relationships with your customers and with your coworkers. Many times, the people you work with become like a second family. So it's important, especially if you're new, to develop relationships early on.
Victor was lucky in this respect because he already had a mentor built in, but you can't just rely on one person for everything. It's like the saying, it takes a village to raise a child. This is no different.
Victor thinks back to his roots and the relationship he has with his mentor.
And he really, set the pace for that. And he was a great salesman, great person, and, kind of inspired me to stay in the business when the times got hard. And, I was always grateful for that, for people like that in the business that, put their head down, worked hard, and gave it their all, and had a little bit of time for you during the day or at the end of the day to give you the guidance to keep going and to learn from everything that you have to learn in this business to succeed.
As you transition from being the green pea to becoming more seasoned, it's important to remember how you got to where you are. It takes a village, remember? So be sure to pay it forward when the next new person arrives.
The first thing Victor tackled during his first few months on the job was product knowledge. Pretty standard. You need to know it, understand it, and like I've said before, liking the product that you sell makes a difference too.
It's definitely harder to sell something that you don't believe in, but more importantly, your customers will feel that.
So product knowledge first, which goes hand in hand with the feature, advantage, benefit vehicle presentation.
A quick side note, if you're looking for a fresh way to do a vehicle presentation, check out episode 3 featuring Brian Armstrong. He teaches us a vehicle walkaround using safety, economy, and performance categories. It's a great episode with a big fish story that you'll love. We'll link to it in our show notes.
After product knowledge in the vehicle presentation, next, begin to learn how to read reactions, verbal and nonverbal.
The main thing that he really taught me was the craft of people, knowing the subtleties of how people's reaction when maybe they didn't want to say what they were thinking, that they really, the body language and vocal tonality or, these type of things that really kind of set me into the next level of service for my customers.
So, for example, when the client sitting across from you has his arms crossed, this typically signifies a very standoffish posture. This is probably not an ideal time to ask a closing question. In a case like this, you may want to consider asking another open-ended question and circle back until you get him to relax a little.
There's no magic ball or set of tarot cards, and we aren't doing this for manipulation purposes. We read people to be sure our message is hitting the mark and to understand where they're at in the buying process.
The foundation of sales has been the same since the beginning of time: product knowledge and the psychological buying process. Understanding body language and communication is paramount in walking a client through this journey.
We give a lot of information to people, and they have a lot of choices out there as far as the different makes and models and manufacturers and trim levels. And when you know the product knowledge and you can guide them in the right way and be a resource of information, then you kind of start to build that trust. And then from there, as long as you know kind of what they're thinking and how they're reacting to you, that's when you really start to build a rapport with somebody and gain their trust and deliver what you need to deliver to them to solve their problems.
You are the customer's guide. To paint the picture, here's a story about Mr. Smith. Notice how Victor reads the signs.
He walks up to me and he has his 2 dogs out front and he's getting service. And, sometimes when we're walking around the showroom and there's people around and, they're taking a little gaze here and there and you're noticing, that they may or may not be interested and, you kind of want to let them drink their coffee or walk their dogs and be peaceful and, walk over and say, hey, how can I help you? And just a small thing that I noticed with him is that he was really like walking his dogs around a truck, and the dogs wanted to get into the back of the truck. And he was looking around like, should I let him in the back of the truck? Should I not let him in the back of the truck? And I walked over and I said, hey, yeah, you can let the dogs in the back of the truck if you'd like. And he had this big smile on his face. And, I just knew right there how much he loved his dogs. So I said, what's your dog's names? And he goes, Daisy and Star. And I go, great dogs. What are their names? Just started to build that rapport on the dogs. And they're 2 golden retrievers, kind of old, so we had to help them in the back of the truck. And just talking to this guy, I found out that he has a Tacoma, the same truck, exact same truck and exact same color that he's looking at in the service department. And so I started talking to him about his truck, and he's telling me how he likes to kayak and likes to take his truck out. And, his eyes start to open wide, and he's, really getting to kind of know what his lifestyle is about and what he likes doing. And then he tells me that his truck has 382,313 miles on it. I was like, wow. And he goes, but the odometer went out about 20,000 miles ago.
Reading the signs or even just listening should tell you that Mr. Smith is in the market for a new truck. But instead of applying sales pressure...
So I was like, wow, that's a great story. Like, I hear that a lot as far as vehicles lasting a long time. But this is pretty unique as far as how many miles you got on your vehicle. I said, do you mind if I, take a few pictures of the truck? I mean, my customers would love to hear about this. and know that these trucks, because I tell them every day, they just don't see it every day. And he goes, yeah, no problem. So he was very gracious after he left the service department, and comes over and says, hey, I'm ready. You want to take a picture of my truck? So I put him up by the Toyota sign, took a few pictures of him and the dogs and the truck and the odometer, and just started building that relationship, and gave him my card, my number, and a week later he gives me a call and says, hey, I think I'm going to be in the market here soon for a truck.
And of course, he wants the truck that Victor had let the dogs up into. And
I said, was it the one you're eyeballing on the showroom? And he says, yeah, I think that's the one I like. It's exactly what I have, and I love them. He goes, but give me a little bit of time. And I knew that just the vocal tonality and what he was telling me in his voice, that he wasn't really keen to let go of his old vehicle. And we kind of run into that with the nostalgia and the connection and the story that you have with your vehicle. Sometimes you don't want to let go because it's a good running truck, got a lot of miles on it. So we just started building that relationship, and eventually he came in, and I sold him the exact truck that he was looking at, and but it took a while. It took a while to build that trust, and those are the kind of things. And now I know that when he calls me on my cell phone and I see his name, he's either out doing something or he's in service and wants to say hi. But we do keep in contact that way. And that's, those are the kind of things and the stories that you have in this business that, I've failed to find anywhere else. And that's what keeps attracting me to the business.
Not only is this a great story, it's a great example of being mindful of who's on the lot and what they're doing. I also want to note here that this happens every day in each and every one of our dealerships.
And I'm watching that our service department is just jamming, and they are not interacting with anybody. It's like there's this, that's exactly it. Yeah, you're not going to sell a car right this second, but you don't know what you're building by just, saying hello, doing what we do best.
Customers are milling about while their vehicle is in service. They're drinking free Starbucks and looking at bright and shiny cars and trucks. So be mindful of your surroundings. Take note of these service customers, because many times these are prime candidates for a new vehicle. Service is prime for the picking.
If you're listening to this and don't have someone in your dealership working the service lane mining customers and vehicle data, this is something you should consider implementing. Check to see if customers are in equity, eligible for pull-ahead, or close to warranty expiration. These are leads. Are you converting them? Are you working them like you should be? Could you be missing out on sales and increased revenue? Absolutely. I was at a roundtable recently, and a GM told me that they assigned someone to the service lane to do just this, and within the first 90 days, the person had generated over $100,000 in gross.
Victor explains the importance of playing the short and long game, serving customers who are in market right now and those who will be at some point in the future.
I mean, a lot of times we get caught up in the ego factor or the money factor, and those things are great as far as confidence and, paying your bills and, buying 2 cars instead of just having one. But as far as this business goes, it's definitely the long game. When you're building those relationships, not everybody needs a car now. And the ones that do need a car now, you're gonna sell them, and you're gonna build that relationship over time. But they're probably gonna buy that car now because they need it. But the ones who don't really have a need, more of a want, you have to play the long game with them. And
4!
Victor's philosophy is that sales is about building long-term relationships. You can sell in a one-and-done manner, but that's not going to give you optimum results. Connecting with your customers through email, on social, wherever they're at, the technology of today has made it so easy.
Use the tools in your tool belt. Email, social media, your CRM.
I would say just nurture the relationships. Whatever the tools you have right now to nurture that relationship with your customer, do it. And know who's in their household. Know their how many drivers they have in their household. How many what cars they drive and the names of those drivers. Who's in the market next. Who's next to buy a vehicle. And why? What is their why? Why would they be the next person to buy that vehicle? And then then you have a way to keep in contact with them and a reason.
Simple steps that help you keep in touch, stay top of mind, and become a trusted advisor. The system Victor just outlined is about follow-up and prospecting future sales.
Targeted prospecting. You're using information that's at your disposal to prospect the next sale or referral, and your customer won't even realize it. What they will think is that you care enough to take note and remember what they've said. And they're right, because you do care, and that means a lot.
This is applicable of customer service in any industry. As a customer, I can tell you that it creates a fierce loyalty to the brand or business. Because of my Starbucks barista, Tracy, I now don't drink anything other than Starbucks coffee. She knows my name when I get in line. She knows my drink and has it waiting for me. She is sweet and kind, and she has created a loyal customer of me, a customer for life. And I used to love Tim Hortons. However, after a few bad experiences at Timmy's and great service at Starbucks, it wasn't even a question anymore. I now don't think twice about where I'm going for coffee every day after lunch. I go where they know my name, where I feel like family, and where I pay twice as much as I used to. And it's worth it.
So how exactly do you manage this information? How do you get it? And where do you keep it to harvest later?
Okay, so let's say I'm selling a car. When I'm filling out the paperwork to get everything into the business office, I will take a sheet of paper that I already have printed out, and I will give it to them and say, hey, write down your top radio stations or how you like your radio set. I'm going to set this for you. Also below, I have some information that I like to just get out of my customers so that I know how to follow up with them.
Not just how they want to be followed up with, but when. Is there a particular time that works better than others? And where or how does the customer prefer to be contacted after the sale? Email, phone, Facebook Messenger, or direct message on Twitter? Meeting the customer where they're at, making it convenient and comfortable.
For prospects that he doesn't sell on the first visit, he follows up with a phone call the next day. He calls to check in and answer any outstanding questions. He also uses this opportunity to gather additional information. Victor works to fill in the gaps on his customer information sheet. How does the customer prefer to be contacted going forward, etc. And as long as that relationship continues, he will continue to build out the customer's profile.
And it progresses into a sell or not a sell, because if I have that information and I don't sell them and they buy down the street, they may have a brother or a cousin or a husband that are in the market next.
The time taken to invest in this is well spent. This reminds me of the slogan from the Field of Dreams movie. If you build it, they will come. We might not be talking about baseball, but it still applies. If you take the time to build a relationship with someone, eventually they will become a customer, and if they don't, someone they know will. So the investment is worth it.
Log information in the customer's profile within your CRM. This way you can reference it during your follow-up.
Hey, what is this customer? Who is this customer? And then you have a little kind of roadmap here of who the customer is. Kind of their household, and then I also put something personal that will make me remember them by.
For example,
let's say Mr. Smith, who was looking at the Tacoma, and he had his 2 dogs. I have the 2 dogs' names in there, and I know he loves his pets, and I know he loves kayaking. And I can put that in there, and when I call him, I say, hey, Mr. Smith, have you been kayaking lately? How's it going? I just wanted to follow up with you. How are the dogs?
Once you have it, be sure to log it as soon as possible.
Yeah, as soon as they walk out the door, I put it in. That way I have it. It's noted.
A quick note here. Be sure to dispose of papers that have personal identification information on them properly. Don't just throw them in your garbage on the showroom floor. Cross-shred or dispose of it in a place designated by your dealership. This is the law.
Following up with your customers and potential customers using this method will differentiate you from the typical salesman. So, keeping with the theme of how to differentiate yourself, let's look at this type of prospecting system through another lens.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the one thing about this business that we all know about is that we're trying to capture the certain percentage in this business that's in the market right now, and I think that everybody's trying to capture that. I think that your follow-up and your mentality has to be capturing the bigger percentage, which is not in the market. And those people that are not in the market, they need to understand that you're there for them. Just as an example, we have new models coming out this year. For 2016 on a few different vehicles. And for me to make a video and say, hey, this is the new model coming out. These are the things that I've noticed about it. Please contact me if you need any more information. Give a quick synopsis of what the vehicle is and then send it out there to your customer base, whether that is through your CRM or Facebook or YouTube or however you're distributing your information.
It's interesting because we don't talk about those out-of-market customers all that often, if ever. But when you think about it, if you're working for a new car dealership, the factory and dealership are both marketing to potential in-market customers. They're data mining and marketing to customers in equity, nearing the end of their lease or loan, etc. So why not focus where everyone else is not?
The outcome?
And then you become a resource of information, and now those people who are interested are going to contact you.
As for social media, Victor keeps things business focused, but puts in a personal touch now and again to let people know that he's real. Social is just another mode of communication to leverage. It's another tool in your tool belt, and it's free.
The ROI might be hard to measure, but there is a return.
Eventually, those people show up on your front door and they say, hey, we appreciate everything you've done. We loved your posts. I know we haven't contacted you in a while, but we thought you were the first person we thought about when we needed a vehicle because this, or this happened.
So there's your return right there. Victor's social strategy has nothing to do with sales.
But I'm going to tell stories about my customers rather than trying to sell cars. I'm just going to say, hey, these are my customers. This is the Toyota world that I live in, and try to portray all of the engagements that I have with my customers. People looked at me like, well, why would you do that? How are you going to make money at that? What's that going to do for you? And a lot of times they didn't get it.
No wonder we like him so much. That's exactly what we do on this show. Tell the stories of people within the auto industry. And it's funny because we get the same response when we tell people about Be Less Typical. There is a look of contemplation. Then the question comes, how are you going to make money doing that? To which our response is, we aren't. We just want to share the stories of our world, expose positive examples to break negative perceptions, and ultimately pay it forward.
Victor has a personal website dedicated to his car sales on theshowroom.com. He's active on a lot of social networks, but we wanted to focus on those you don't hear about much in terms of utilizing as a sales tool: Instagram and Snapchat, two platforms you don't typically see salespeople using. So why these social platforms?
Well, let's start with Instagram because that's kind of the one that I like the most, and the things that I do well on that. I've always had a hobby of photography, so it's kind of right up my alley. I just take a picture of a vehicle and glam it up a little bit. And most of those vehicles on there are customer vehicles. It's not something I'm selling. Something someone's coming through my service department and they have a great vehicle and it's lifted and it's got all these bells and whistles on it, or it's unique and it's pink, or those type of things. I see that and I share it with my customers.
He tags the customer if they have an Instagram and uses hashtags to reach his target audience. He's turned a hobby into something that can serve his business as well, and he's using it in a way that allows him to talk to potential customers, like-minded car people who are interested in the same things as he is. So what's worked?
It's been good with these new vehicles that are being launched. I can post it on there, let them know how long it's going to be till the vehicle's here, and then they can contact me. And most people on that, they will comment, and then you just comment back, start to engage with them, and that's it's hard to calculate your ROI on Instagram, and I know everybody's trying to do that now, but really it's just about engagement. Talk to the people who are commenting on your photos because they like it. Say, hey, I appreciate you commenting. Let me know if you need anything, or what did you like about it? Do you have a TC? Like them back, comment on their photo, and then you start to build that relationship over time.
And then there's Snapchat. If you're not familiar with this social network, Snapchat is a messaging application for sharing moments. You take a photo or video, add a caption or doodle, and send it to a friend or add it to your story. Friends can view snaps for up to 10 seconds, and then it disappears.
You can also do live video with a friend.
Wants to do live video and they don't have an iPhone. I can actually live video feed back and forth and then walk them around a few features that they asked me about. I had just for an example, I had a gentleman in Arizona who was a pilot for Southwest, and he came in or he called me and said, hey, I want to look at this vehicle. It's a 2010 Sequoia with really low miles. I want to see inside, make sure it has everything I want. And I live feed him through Snapchat and walked him around the vehicle. Well, apparently his parents lived here, which is why he was looking in Florida, flew in, purchased the vehicle, and then drove it home.
Another tool that's free and available for you to leverage. Another way to build a brand and connect with your customers and potential customers in a way that's innovative and less typical from the rest.
If this seems overwhelming to you, that's okay. Take it slow. Start where you're comfortable and where your people are. But eventually, take a risk and try something new. Victor describes his social journey as,
it's been a really good adventure.
This business is an adventure. So how is it possible to fit all of this extra stuff in? Sell cars, stay healthy, find balance, and stay sane?
Yes, yeah. I mean, my schedule goes like this. I wake up at 5 in the morning and head to the gym. I have to drive a half an hour to work, so I actually go to the gym up here and then shower there. So I get a pretty heavy workout in and then head right to work and then start in the morning, start my daily routine, and that routine sets the pace for the day.
This might seem a little bit intense, but just like any routine, eventually you'll get used to it. Patrick and I run a very similar schedule.
There's no end schedule sometimes. You can't say that I'm off at 6 or whatever to be able to plan to go for a workout. And I've seen in my own life that contributes to success, is setting a schedule for myself specifically in the morning and not starting my day with the snooze button 11 times.
I agree on the snooze. Snoozing only leads to groggy mornings and slow starts.
Get my day started by sweating, and then from there it seems like the day is easy once you've deadlifted 400 pounds or squatted 250 pounds. Everything seems to be easy through the day.
I couldn't agree more. And as you become a leader and build relationships with coworkers, you become a role model and example for others to follow. It's not just your work ethic that's noticed, it's your behaviors too.
Okay, so now that the workout is complete, what's the game plan for the rest of the day?
I schedule out every single 30-minute block of my time from the second I wake up until the second I walk away from this place.
Time out. One quick note. To get a free copy of Victor's schedule log, which he calls the game plan, go to belesstypical.com/game plan and opt in. We'll send you a printable version that you can start using today. Just go to belesstypical.com/game plan and opt in. It's easy. Now back to the show.
Every 30-minute block scheduled.
30 minutes, 5-minute break, 30 minutes, 5-minute break. And that has really made all the difference as far as scheduling everything I need to schedule for the day.
Not only has this impacted the amount of work he gets done, but after work, because he's organized and on top of his business, he can focus on his family. He doesn't bring work home, which is important because working dealership hours is tough, not just on the person working them, but on the family too.
Definitely, yeah. And that's, God bless my wife. She, she's had to put up with that schedule as far as for the last 12 years. Like, okay, I'm off at 6. Dinner's at this. We're meeting so-and-so here. What time are you going to be there? And I just look at her and she just knows that, okay, I'll be there, as soon as I can, when I can, or, if my schedule permits me.
Yeah, I think we've all been through that. Wait, you don't take a lunch? What do you mean? You can't meet me for lunch? Yeah, well, I don't know when lunch is. Having a schedule can help minimize all of the frustrations that come along with having to stay late, come in on a day off, etc. Because
the most valuable thing that we have is time. And that's the main thing. I mean, anything that gives you time in this business.
So use it wisely, but also understand that sometimes things completely out of your control are going to blow your schedule out the window.
And sometimes that just goes out the door. You walk into the showroom, there's somebody right there in front of you looking at a truck on the showroom floor, and you end up selling them a vehicle all day long, and that schedule's gone.
So on a day when he can follow his schedule, or game plan as he likes to call it, let's walk through his day.
Okay, so he gets to work around 7:45-ish. The first thing he does is check all the Scion websites, looking for specials or new offers that customers might see when they're searching for a Scion. Next, he reviews his game plan. Essentially, this is a log of important items, things like to-do lists and his 30-minute block schedule. He makes edits if necessary.
To get your copy of Victor's game plan, don't forget to go to belesstypical.com/game plan.
Next, he does a lot walk to check inventory, taking note of anything new and where things are at. Then he checks for inventory drops, noting not only the new stock vehicles, but also verifying to see if any of the vehicles are his customer-ordered vehicles. Up next, a morning sales meeting. After the sales meeting, he completes his follow-through items.
I'll call it follow-through. So any promises that I've made to anybody, I make sure that I follow through with those.
Things like getting an extra key cut for a customer, sending out a quote he promised, etc.
Then he starts his follow-up and daily tasks. And this is where the game plan and 30-minute strategy come into play.
All of my follow-up plan on a sheet on the left of this sheet, and on the right I have the time frame.
So he gathers what he needs to complete his first task, starts the timer, and gets to work.
Whether that's making a video for YouTube, I'll go upstairs, click on that timer, and I only have 30 minutes. Maybe I've written the script the night before. Maybe I'm writing it now. Maybe the cameraman's right there ready to go, and we'll get that going. And then from there, just schedule everything.
And that's how his day goes. Throughout the day, he updates his game plan for the next day, filling it out as tasks are scheduled. Before he leaves for the night, he fills in any gaps, and then he checks out.
Victor has shared some great golden nuggets of advice. Be sure to check out the show notes for additional details. But let's recap really quick.
Don't start your day with the snooze button. Get moving early. Work out and commit to living a healthy life.
Learn from those around you and help teach others.
Watch for body language and voice tonality subtleties that can indicate where your customer is at in their psychological journey to the sale.
Harvest customer details and log them into your CRM.
Use your customer database to do targeted prospecting.
Capture out-of-market opportunities.
Use social media in a way that makes sense for you.
Schedule your day and time. Use it wisely. It's the most valuable resource you have.
That's quite a list of actionable ideas that you can start implementing today. We will list these out in our show notes so you can refer back to them. So be sure to check those out at belesstypical.com/015.
A few additional thoughts and sales philosophy tidbits from Victor.
Rather than being the sell person and the now person, it's really more about giving. And I don't think there's a lot of room for ego there when you give.
Don't let your ego get in the way. The outcomes are much greater if you create a sales strategy based on building relationships and being of service. Because then
they show up at the dealership, and that, puts a smile on your face, and you know that all the giving and all the energy that you put out is coming back to you. And that's, like I said, that's part of the long game.
We all have a lot to be grateful for, and it's important to recognize our management, mentors, and dealer owners.
Serve your customers, serve the people that have allowed you to be in this position and provide for your family, and that will all come back to you. And it's been proven. I think people have done it.
And one last note,
have the integrity to follow through with the things that you need to follow through with, and this business will give back what you give to it. So if you have a giving mentality and a good attitude, this is a great business to be in. And we're all pretty happy that it's doing the things that it's doing right now, and we got to make hay while the sun shines. So
make hay while the sun shines. I love it. In closing, we would like to say a special thank you to Victor Montoya. He was the first Be Less Typical learner to reach out and let us know how our show was impacting his life. From the bottom of our hearts, thank you. We consider you the show's very first fan, other than my mom, of course.
Really appreciate you guys. What you guys are doing. I mean, I definitely turn this on in the car when I'm driving back and forth from work and home, and it gives me that extra push in the day for motivation, and knowing that we have a really good network of people out there thinking this way and moving in the direction that it makes us proud to be here and proud to serve, and give it our all every day, because we do spend a lot of time here.
We make this show for people like Victor and people like you who want to learn, share, and take this industry to the next level. And again, I don't want to keep you any longer, so I'm going to be done, but it's hard for me to shut up sometimes. I'm in the car business, right?
Now it's up to you. Go to belesstypical.com/game plan and opt in to receive your very own game plan template. You will become more productive if you have an outline for each and every day. Go to belesstypical.com/game plan and opt in.
Again, a special thank you to Victor Montoya of Sun Toyota in Scion for being a guest on the show. For all show notes, go to belesstypical.com/015. And if you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe in iTunes or wherever you listen to the show. Doing this ensures you won't miss an episode. And speaking of episodes, later this week we're going to publish our first mini-show, a Golden Nugget bonus episode. This short show will outline one actionable item that you can implement that day. This week's Golden Nugget bonus is a trick Victor shares about employee engagement.
Our theme song is by the mysterious Breakmaster Cylinder. All episode editing and mixing is done by us, a couple of amateurs learning as we go. 2 items before we sign off. Number 1, please take a moment to share our show with your friends, family, and coworkers. Sharing is caring, and we appreciate your support. And number 2, if you or anyone you know are conducting car sales in a less typical way, please reach out. We want to hear your story, and there's a chance you could be featured on the show, just like Victor. Send me an email so we can connect. My email address is Courtney@belesstypical.com. Behind the scenes.
You can sell in a one-and-done manner, but that's not a good...
That's not a gonna get you.
That's not a gonna do it. Let's begin again.
Blooper.